This one goes out to everyone who watched The Exorcist and then couldn't sleep for a week. You are so valid. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am taking you through a list of books that I think would be great for you to read in October if you're not a big horror fan. I am absolutely not one of those people. I hate anything to do with gore and blood and guts coming out of your stomach. It's just not my kind of reading, but I know that that's something that so many people look forward to October for. But if you still want to get involved in the spooky season, but you're not super big on horror, there are definitely a couple of books that you can read anyway. I know I said don't go towards horror, but if you do want to get a little bit spooked out and you don't want it to be super high stakes, then definitely pick up the Goosebumps series by R.L. Stine. These have been around for such a long time. I think they were actually first published in the early 90s, and there's about 100 to 150 books in the series of just kind of horror stories, but told in a way that's accessible for children. One of my favorite books of the entire series is Take Cheese and Die, which is about a camera that once you take a picture of it, the people in it are going to start disappearing and they're going to start dying. Another one that I really enjoyed is Piano Lessons Can Be Murder, which is about a piano teacher who kind of takes his students hostage and sellotapes them to this piano while they're playing. I also really enjoyed The Curse of Camp Jellybean, which is about a really isolated camp right in the middle of the woods where the camp counselors aren't as you would expect, and the camp mascot is a little bit more realistic than people were expecting. I've read about 20 or so of the series, and I know that they have such a huge following. And if you're not looking to get super into horror, but you still want to get a little bit freaked out over Halloween, these are definitely the books to go for. If you want your Halloween reading to have a little bit of a witchy vibe, then there are definitely some witchy romances that you can go and pick up. The first one that I would recommend is The Ex-Hex by Aaron Sterling. This is actually the first in a series, and the third book has just recently come out. The first book follows Gwen, who is a trainee witch, and when she has been sighted by her boyfriend Reese, she decides to put a curse on him that everything in his life is going to go to pieces. He's not going to be able to find a relationship, his job is going to go to absolutely tatters, and nothing in his life is going to work out. He moves away from the town, but about 10 years later, he comes back, and it turns out that this curse went a little bit further than she was expecting it to. All of a sudden, everything in his life has completely fallen apart, but Reese now has to come back to the town because he is next in line for his family's fortune, and he really has to get everything in line before that can happen. Another one that I would recommend, and one that definitely has a very cozy vibe, is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This is following Mika, who is one of Britain's witches, but she hasn't ever let anybody in on this secret. She's been living kind of a reclusive life since her parents passed away, but one day she's been invited to come to Nowhere House to teach 3 young women how to harness their power as witches. When she moves there, she also kind of clashes with the hot but very grumpy librarian who's living in the house. And when things start to become more of a threat to Nowhere House than they were expecting to, everybody really needs to start banding together to keep the magic within. I absolutely love the idea of a book that's cozy, that has found family vibes, so this is definitely one I'm going to pick up in October. Another really cute witchy romance is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley. This is about Mariel, who has been prophesied to become one of the most powerful witches in the Spark family, but she is much more interested in baking and getting the right ingredients together for the perfect cake. One evening, while she is baking, she accidentally casts a summoning spell and brings in Ozrath, who is a super powerful demon. She's not super keen on telling her mother that everything with the spell went wrong, so Mariel decides to tell people that she and Ozrath are dating. This starts to become a little bit more complicated, as it turns out that Mariel and Ozrath are now kind of bound together because of this summoning spell, and the only way that they're going to be taken apart is by fulfilling a couple of quests together. Turns out that they just don't want to be apart from one another though. If you want something super unsettling, then go for Other Words for Smoke by Sarah Maria Griffin. This is the story of what happened one summer when Rita's house burned down and she and her ward Bevan lost their lives in the fire. There are only 2 people who know what happened that summer, and that is Rita's niece and nephew, May and Rossa. They know everything about what was happening in the walls, and the owl that it seems was trapped there, and the cat who is always 2 steps behind you no matter where you go to give you that really unsettling feeling. This book really did give me a feeling of unease that I think is perfect for what people might be looking for in October. For a more urban witchy vibe, then try out All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue. This is following Maeve, who during detention one day finds a deck of tarot cards in the closet that she's supposed to be cleaning out. She starts giving readings to some of her other friends in school, and one day Lily, who she hasn't spoken to for a couple of years, comes up and asks for a reading as well. One of the cards that Maeve turns over is the housekeeper, which she has never seen in any of the research that she's done, and the next morning, Lily is nowhere to be found. Maeve teams up with Ro, who is Lily's brother, and Fiona, one of Maeve's new friends, to try and figure out what this card has to do with Lily's disappearance and how to get Lily back from wherever it is that she's gone. This is the first in a trilogy, so if this is really starting to grip into you, I would absolutely recommend that you go and pick this one up. I've already read the second book in the series as well, and it is just as dark and just as kind of creepy as the first one, but I have a feeling that the third one is really going to round it out on a great note. If you really want a dystopian and unsettling world, then go and check out one of the best dystopian books that I have ever read, and probably one of the best known dystopian books in the world. I would absolutely recommend The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. It is set in the fictional country of Gilead, which is the area that is now comprised of the entire continent of North America, and it is set in a world where women have lost all autonomy. They no longer have bank accounts, they are no longer allowed to keep jobs, they are basically being kept as housemaids or as wombs. All women who are married are now to take on the names of their husbands. So instead of being called Mary or Elizabeth or Sharon, they're actually being named of Warren or of Simon or of Daniel. The main character that we are following in this book is of Fred, who is married to Fred, obviously, but has been taken on as a kind of a womb for Fred, who is one of the biggest officers in the military. He and his wife are unable to carry children, so she is going to be the one to carry the child for them. He basically comes in every single night, rapes her, and then leaves. The whole book is a look at what this life is like for these women who have basically been completely stripped of any rights that they have. And it's really unsettling to watch everything develop and just how well Margaret Atwood put this world together in a way that doesn't feel too unrealistic that it could actually happen. If you're kind of interested in paranormal romance, but you're not entirely sure where to start, it might be a good idea to start with Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is following Misery, who is a vampire that's not quite living in anonymity among humans anymore, because now she has been called upon to kind of be a peacekeeper between the vampires and the weres. She's also kind of in a marriage convenience with Lo, who is the alpha of the were pack, and it turns out that this marriage is starting to become a little bit more real than they were expecting it to. This is a good entrance into paranormal romance, but I will warn you that there is a scene with knotting in here. If this isn't something that you're comfortable with, maybe take a break from this one. But if it is a trope that you're interested in reading, this is definitely a good paranormal romance 101. Another great book and a great series to try out is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. There are 2 books in the series as well as a short prequel that has just come out in the summer of this year. This is following 4 friends who, when they were teenagers, all made a pact that they were going to join Her Majesty's Royal Coven together. About a decade or so later, however, their lives have all split into completely different ways. Helena is the only one who is still involved in Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and she is actually now the high priestess of the entire organisation. Neve is working as a country vet, and she's using her powers to heal animals quicker than anyone else in the area can. Elle just wants to be a normal housewife and get along with her life, whereas Leonie has completely disbanded from HMRC and has set up Diaspora, which is a much more inclusive group than HMRC was. However, things are really starting to threaten their lives. There is a huge and powerful warlock who is threatening the peace and the security of HMRC and of their lives together. So even though everybody has completely different ideas about how they should all solve this, they are going to have to band together to try and overcome it. If you want something that's really dark, then I would recommend My Sister the Serial Killer by Oykan Braithwaite. This is set in Nigeria, and it is following Korede, who is interrupted at dinner one night by a phone call from her sister Iola. This can only mean one thing. Coretta needs to put on a hazmat suit, put all of her bleach into her car, and basically come to where Viola is. This is the third of Viola's boyfriends that Viola has murdered, and Coretta is now caught up in everything and trying to hide the bodies and the evidence. Things start to get a little bit more complicated when Viola meets one of Coretta's co-workers and instantly falls in love with him. This starts a kind of a ticking bomb as to when Tim's life is going to end. Finally, some people in October just want comfort. And if you're looking for a book that is super comforting and is super cozy, then I would recommend The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. If you love Gilmore Girls, if you love the small town vibes of Stars Hollow, if you love the coziness of Luke's Diner, this is definitely the book for you. It is following Jeannie, who takes over the Pumpkin Spice Cafe from her ill aunt, and her arrival into Dream Harbor has completely sent everyone in a spin, but no one more so than Logan, who is the owner of the local deli, and he is absolutely not ready for this burst of sunshine to enter his life. I am absolutely in love with a small town romance with anything that has a cafe setting, so this is definitely the book for me in October. Those are all of the books that I think you should put on your sites in October. If you still want to read something atmospheric, but you tend to stay away from the horror bookshelves, what is the book that you have got your sights in October? Is it a spooky book or is it more on the spooky side? If you'd love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then why not just leave me the screaming emoji? Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.